climb the stairwell like a machine taking breath. A hard pull, a heavy pause, the next clatter rising through the ribs of the block. Our door's lumen blinks. My wife folds our rag into the bowl as if civility could be polished back on. My son whispers a half-remembered hymn. The air smells of boiled recalf and the iron tang of my augmetic hot where I burned it on the cooker coil. An hour earlier, when the vents still coughed steam and the hallways had not yet been measured by bootfall, on our flat held together with the small rites we know. I drag the edge of a knife over my synthetic thumb and pare away a curl of melted insulation. My hand hums. The cogitator scar inside my wrist chatters in tiny ticks, a language that is only ever mine and the metals, a thin comfort. I hold my breath against the damp and touch the coil again, testing whether the kettle will obey. It does. Small obedience matters because it is a thing I can make right with a tool. Duh. And my boy presses his cheek to my elbow and leaves a smear of sleep slime on felted tunic. He taps my steel fingers against his brow. 3 taps for luck, as if luck were a switch. Do the quick prayer. I speak the words while the kettle stutters. Not the long version. He hates the long version, and sometimes I do too. Bless the hands. Bless the heat. Bless the measure between. Hold fast. He smiles as if I have built him a wall. My wife turns the icon around to face the room. Last night she turned it toward the wall for a moment to scrub soot. I watch the tiny motion of her mouth as she lines it again with the shelf's edge. She makes everything align. The spoon in the bowl points toward the door. The cloth on the table shows no arc of crumbs beyond its boundary. This is not new. This is how she keeps the world in squares. Outside, someone coughs with that fluted metal sound the older men catch from the pipeworks. There are banners in the stairwell, frayed from the steam, with smiling faces that never lived in our building. They tell us to love strongly and report quickly. The ink is always wet somehow. "You'll be on the line today?" she asks without looking at me. "Inspections only." A man bled into a conduit 2 floors down. We're meant to check for shunts. I say it flat, the way we say it to ourselves. Tasks, not stories. She nods. She has already laid out the patch for my elbow, the scent mask, or the badge that says my name and another word longer than my breath permits when I try to read it. She has oiled my hand with the machine balm we traded for bread last summer. Her fingers smell of resin now, always. "Eat," she says. I obey out of habit. The food is not bad, but my mouth does not know what to do with it. I look at my boy. He is counting the teeth on my thumb wheel with his lips moving. Then he stops when I see him. Fear that counting is wrong unless given. It'll bring a cog scrap. And if they let me, I promise. His face lights, then puckers quickly into propriety. "Only if it is lawful," he recites. I nod like a man in a picture. Lawful is a broad room you can lose yourself in. On the landing, old Rima's door hinge squeals as it always has, but she does not peer out this time. She pretends the world is empty and safe until rations. I take the steps slow because the left knee, not mine since the pit collapse 3 years ago, does not enjoy early descent. At the foot of the stairwell hangs a fresh notice, edges still solvent tacky. The letters are big so every eye can read. Familial love is proven through clean testimony. There is a black line where some clerk has set down a name and then scraped it away. The shavings of paper stick to the wet ink like skin around a wound. The Habs corridor breathes me into the morning. Pipes sing and gutters trickle and the endless soft scuttle of roaches keeps company. I raise my scent mask when a drift of solvent pushes from the open maw of the manufactory across the street. Inside, the world is red-hot pins and oil light. The foreman greets us with a nod and flips his purple ledger. He looks small beneath the prayer plaque. He has sons and no wife and 5 reasons to live. He tells me to mind the corner line. I mind it. I am good at minding corners. The line hisses when I open it to look for bubbles. Through the thin film of safety glass, in the air trembles green. I hear the cable singing a note like a vein you can pluck. The augmetic palm warms with little shivers where power licks the plates. It is like being spoken to in a language whose grammar is voltage. I get 9 out of 10 words and assume the rest. On my break, the guard with the clipped ear asks if I have seen the new list posted outside the grain warehouse. I say no. He shrugs, bored of it already. Names, he says, as if names were a product like pipe tape or salt. And he opens his lunch tin. Inside is a square of protein and a picture of a woman who is not his. He eats the protein and tucks the woman back under the tin's lid, tender as you would tuck a child. When the kettle whistle thrums again in my head after the lunch gong, it is not the factory. The sound has the shape of home. The brain is a stupid dog and runs where it is whistled from. I think of the window that sticks, and the latch that needs my thumb wheel pressed into its skin before it will hold. On my way home, the hallway feels tubed and longer than it is. It stretches when I look at it, then snaps back when I blink. The knees of the stair are wet. Someone is scrubbed. A smell of incense stands in a square 3 steps wide and nowhere else. I hold my breath through it and remember how my wife corrected the direction of the icon with 2 fingers. Inside, the table is laid again, and the bowl is empty but polished to a kind fanfare. My boy sits with his back too straight. His toes grip the rung of the stool. His cheeks have been scrubbed raw. My wife's sleeves are rolled high and her hands are clean and shaking in the joints, though she has pinned them together to hide that. "Go wash," she says softly, and I obey. The water spits into the tin and fog swarms the mirror. My face looks like it was made and remade and needs making again. When I return, a woman I have never seen stands in the corner near the window. She holds a slat of wood with paper strapped to it and does not look at me at first, which is stranger than being stared at. She has the calm of a person whose purpose has been laid between 2 lines and cannot escape them. She reminds me of a tool. "Good day," she says finally, and the words are rubbed smooth with being used too often. "Please sit." I sit and the stool makes a noise it has not made before. A small throat sound. My son watches the door with his mouth parted just a little, as if a word has been written there and he is afraid to smudge it. There is a seal on the paper. Red wax, the imprint deep and biting. The distant shape is a bird with 2 heads, but I do not count the feathers. I am not that brave. "Names," the woman says. She looks to my wife first, not me. My wife's voice sticks on my surname and then slides free. She does not look at me. The woman writes and the nib of her pen rasps on cheap pulp, and a sound like shoes on sand. She asks for dates. She asks for work assignments. She asks if there are others who come and go. She writes more. None of this is the question, and yet it is all of it. My son reaches for my augmetic under the table. He does not touch it. He places his hand a hair's breadth from the steel and holds it there, testing heat without contact like he might burn. We wait. The sound comes up the stair, metal on metal, slowing near our door. And the scribal woman loosens something in her shoulders without actually moving them. My wife stands. She has turned the icon again, a minor correction so it looks directly toward the door now, as if to see who comes. The knock lands like a hammer on a nail. My son flinches and then composes himself, reminding his bones of their roles. My wife opens her mouth and shuts it and opens it again because the right must be spoken. She walks to the door and places her palm flat on the wood. The lock clicks. She turns the bolt. When she draws the door back, the corridor beyond is full of a person wearing the smell of gun oil and varnished leather. "Good evening," the man says like a teacher. He is too large for our doorway. He wears armor pressed into squares and circles the way a butcher presses meat with twine. His visor does not come up. The bird of the seal gleams on his chest. Another stands behind him with a shock prod at rest but not asleep. The woman in the corner nods once, and the man has papers. He always would have papers. He looks at my wife directly and not unkindly. "Is this the room of—" He says my name. "Yes," my wife says with another word after it that I have only heard when she speaks to our son and wants him to keep breathing. "Yes, officer. Is the man named present?" His voice makes the glass in the window think about cracking but decide through long habit not to. "I am," I say, and stand, even because to fail to stand would splinter something I can never repair. "Hold out your hands." He waits like a man who has never been refused. The shape of refusal moves inside me like a fish. It is not a thing I know how to catch. My augmetic hums again. It is a tiny sound in the room full of furnished words. My wife does not look away from the officer's chest, from that bird pressed into the plate. A photograph of our family would be made from this. Her chin lifted and set, my son's lips pressed into one valiant line, my hand held out obediently, the officer's gauntlet poised. The scribal woman in the corner lifts the pen shaft slightly, stirring air around the page to dry the ink that will ruin no matter what she does to it. "Reason?" comes out of me in a voice that sounds sadly like my own. The officer has a paper already turned. He shows it the way a priest shows a relic. Briefly, not for me to read, only to understand that there is a thing to read. On the wax is red and the stamp is deep. There is our block number and my name in other words that are none of my business. The space where a sign should be bears a print of a thumb marked in ink. The whirl is familiar. I have watched that thumb sew in smooth and close jars and shush children. It is a good thumb. Beside it, smaller, another print, oily, imperfect, but certain as a sunrise seen through smoke. "Testimony has been received," the officer says. Under the table, my boy finally touches my steel palm and then just as quickly draws his hand back. They clasp the irons on me with the noise of teeth biting down. The officer's friend takes my elbow gently because I am compliant. The rods of the cuffs rattle on each other like rain on a coat. My wife steps back to grant space. It is the politest thing she has done all day, and it destroys everything in me that was not already prepared for destruction. We move toward the door like water following a slope, and the scribal woman follows us without asking permission, because that is the kind of thing she never has to do. Neighbors stand like furniture in their doorways, arranged by the hall's architecture. Rima holds a tin icon the way a child holds a toy when it is broken and cannot be made whole but is still loved for the shape of it. The ward lumen hums louder than before, as if trying to be noticed. As we go down, the banister grips my sleeve with old grease. The officer goes first, and because rank descends before sin. Outside, the evening hits with the smell of solvent and hot metal and the long breath of 100 machines that are all doing one job. A van with wire over its windows waits with its mouth closed. The rear door yawns open on command. There are benches inside and brackets on the walls with straps for heads. The floor is patterned like grating, but is in fact one sheet of metal hammered to look like grating, and it is easier to clean that way. They put me in and my wife stands on the walkway with her hands joined as if to pray, but empty of anything as yet. My boy stays behind her leg like the old cat we lost that winter who would not cross the threshold without her toe in his ribs. The scribal woman says please, and my wife leans forward without changing her feet and presses her thumb into the pad of ink the woman holds out, and the woman sets the paper against the door and holds it with her other hand so the board will not slip. My wife's print lands neatly beside the one already there. My boy looks up at her, receives a look in return, and very carefully sets his own thumb down when the woman angles the pad so he can reach. This is the part I had not guessed, though I had practiced guesses all my life. This is the part with the air in my mouth but no breath. I feel nothing righteous or dramatic. No flame takes me. I think only of how she will clean the ink from their thumbs. I think of the rag, how she will turn it to find an unstained place. The door shuts with a tightening of air more than a bang. In the dim, the officer sits across from me, facing, not unkind. The chemsmell is kept modest, no point in wasting good purge in a clean detention. He asks if the cuffs chafe. When I say yes, he lifts my wrists and tweaks a screw so they do not bite but still hold. His breath whistles in the little gap by his cheek seal. The scribal woman takes the bench nearest the door and begins to copy her own writing into a second page with a new nib, afresh as if nothing has been written yet. The van moves with the softness of expensive engineering. The straps on the wall sway like unstrung tongues. I try to hold my arms in such a way that my hands do not hurt. My flesh palm sweats against metal. The augmetic knows what to do about strain and relaxes in small tremors. And the officer watches me as if I am a leaking valve he has been told to supervise. "Do you understand the nature of testimony?" he asks me finally, as if there is a correct answer and he would like me to enjoy finding it. Yes. The van hums over a seam in the road. The hum climbs my spine like insects. Do you have counter-testimony? I imagine a world where I say my wife was wrong, my boy misled, that those two prints on the paper are not conclusive because their whirls do not encompass everything I believe are rightful, holy, and mine. I imagine my mouth making shapes to claim the word false where my eyes have seen true. I stare at the strap on the wall only to keep my pupil from showing him any thought I do not want recorded. "No," I say. He nods and writes something short on his own little pad, even as if he and the scribal woman are in a race to see who can make the most letters with the least breath. We pass through streets curving like intestines. The manufactory quarter falls away and the spine of the administratum rises. The windows shine with regular light at regular intervals. We stop in a courtyard surrounded by stone steps slicked with damp. The van door opens on a click. The cuffs go again, unsoft in the hand of the familiar friend who is very good at holding men and not hurting them except in the way their day requires. He turns me and leads me into the building. The lobby is too big and it makes my head throb with the intake of scale. The officer's voice bounces in it and comes back cleaner than when it left. We go down because the room we will visit lives under others like rot under paint. Corridors become narrower. Doors give way to arches and then to mere openings stenciled with numbers. I smell chalk. I smell fear but can't locate it because it could be any of us, all of us, smeared like a vapor. A desk sits behind a plate of mesh. The man behind it stamps papers with an appetite that threatens to remove his thumb. He has ink rim around the nail. When his stamp lands, it judders through the counter, through my gut. He points. We go where he points. A narrow room, a bench again, in a drain in the floor with hair caught in it as if the room has sprouted. The scribal woman recites what she needs to recite and then hands me a slat to mark. There is a box beside my name and a space where I am meant to press my own thumb. The pad of ink is there. It darkens the ridges of flesh on the thumb I did not burn off in the accident. I put it down like a man putting his own dry bread into his mouth because no one else will. When I lift it, and the print looks like a map to a city I will not see again, They take my belt, a kindness. They take my bootlaces. They put a tag around my ankle that clicks. The ankle is mine, though much else is on hire. The card on the tag has numbers and my name and the time I arrived. No one writes departure times here. They put me in a cell with a bed like a bench and a bench like a bed and a narrow slit that gives onto a pit where water lies without reflection. And there is a basin and a tap with a mouth like a child's. On the wall, letters incised with a key read, "Be clean and witness." On the floor, scratches speak a language of time, little prisons inside a big one. I sit and my body takes up the same amount of space no matter how I arrange it. The hum from the van is in me still long after the engine has been shut, as if motion is a stain. Voices pass in the corridor like shadows in water. Someone cries excusingly as if sorry for making noise. Someone prays the long prayer I did not say this morning. An orderly passes, a boy almost, with a mop and a tin of powder. He does not look into the cell because his orders say he should not, but his left eye slides anyway. He looks at my hand because everyone always does. He breathes through his mouth to make less sound. I smell soap and something medicinal that scorches the nose and pretends at purity. The officer returns after a time that is both short and without shape. He brings a tin cup of water. He hands it through the grill as if passing something illicit. The water tastes of the room we are in. It is good, and I drink it slow so it lasts longer in what it asks the throat to do. He clears his throat, and for a moment he looks like a man who has to say something that goes against the grain of the day's planned work. "Do you require a final word to kin?" he asks. I shake my head. The words in me that could make a final are small and wrong-sized, and they would not hold. He nods in return, not offended. He tells me gently that my family waits in the lobby, not to see me, but to give a further statement if asked. I nod to show understanding that I did not need. He goes. The footfalls murmur away. I sit. I hold my wrists up and look at the marks where the irons bit before the officer turned the screw for me. The purple rims them like drawn circles. My augmetic runs a diagnostic on its own and reports in a whine that my wife cannot hear. And when I cup the steel tendons in my living hand, the heat of the machine steadies a little. I remember my boy's hand hovering just above this same place, tiny warmth without touch. The cell light trembles with some fault deeper in the building. It steadies. It trembles again. In that stammer, the thin slice of window shows a strip of ceiling outside with a flake of paint curling away like a nail paring. It falls slowly, no rush, turning once in the air as if to look around, and it lands between the drain and my boot. It lies there, pale on the dark. I watch until my eyes water of their own accord and I refuse to blink.